You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and you are listening to this month's magic episode for the month of October, which is coming up next week, and I am very excited for it. It is one of my favorite months of the year, just because I love the Halloween season, but I do just generally enjoy the energy that goes on in the month of October, and I think a lot of you do too. It feels like a particularly witchy month, and there's always an influx of new witches that come about in October just because it is at the forefront of everything, and I love getting new witches in the community, and it is such a great month for finding witchy items and witchy decor in, just general stores, which is great if you live in an area where that is usually hard to find and you don't have witchcraft and occult stores near you. General mass market stores have these things in the month of October, so it's a lot of fun. October is the month of protection, and just like September, and I'm going to tell you again in November and December, the name October comes from the Latin word octo, which means 8. And that is, once again, from that original Roman calendar where October was the 8th month, and the year originally started in March. So October was number 8, but then January and February were added, and October shifted to the 10th month, but the name remained the same. So last month we had that partial lunar eclipse. And this month we have the second solar eclipse and the annual eclipse that happens in the sign of Libra. The universal month number is 9, which is the number of endings and also tying up loose ends. The tarot card for October is the Moon, which is a card of heightening intuition, but might potentially create some confusion when it comes to being able to see things clearly. As far as the correspondences, for the crystals, we have Opal and tourmaline. The animals are the bat, rat, crow, raven, and dove. The flower is the calendula. And some of the deities associated with October are Athena, Hephaestus, Venus, Shiva, and Cernunnos. And as far as the astrology things happening and what's going on with the moon, we have October starting with the sun in Libra, which is a cardinal air sign. And late in the month, it will move on into Scorpio. We have the new moon in Libra on the 2nd, and it brings the second solar eclipse of the year that will last for 4 minutes. Moons in Libra in general are great for spells for balance and unions. We've got the second quarter moon in Capricorn on the 10th, and that will help ground some of those energies. And then we have the full moon on the 17th in Aries, which is great for spells for leadership and power. And that is another supermoon and a great time for taking positive action. The Earth, Sun, and Moon will also be very close to each other at this time. It is just missing another partial lunar eclipse. And then finally, we have the fourth quarter moon on the 24th, and that is in Leo, helping carry that energy and assertiveness into that next month. Now let's jump into some holidays, and starting with the ancient holidays that might tie into some of the ones that we celebrate today, but aren't exactly the same. First, we have the idea of winter nights, and that is a Norse tradition. And I will never be able to pronounce this, but it is spelled Vetrnaetr. So that was an ancient Norse festival that marked the beginning of winter. Typically, it took place in late October or early November. That was a time to honor the ancestors and the spirits, particularly the Deities, or the female spirits or deities that were associated with fate and the protection of the clan. Sacrifices and feasts were held to ensure protection and blessings for the coming winter months. Some Heathen and Asatru practitioners continued to observe winter nights as part of their spiritual practice and honoring their ancestors. We also had the Feast of Pomona in late October. That was a Roman feast that was dedicated to the Roman goddess of fruit, trees, and orchards. It wasn't exclusive to October. It was often celebrated in late autumn as the harvest came to an end. It involved offerings of fruit, particularly apples, which were sacred to Pomona. And it was a time to give thanks for the bounty of the harvest and to ask for continued fertility of the land. The association with apples with autumn and Halloween in modern traditions can often be traced back in part to this worship of Pomona. There was also the festival of Cailleach, and this comes from the Celtic tradition, and the Cailleach, or Old Hag, is a figure in Celtic mythology that's associated with winter, storms, and the land. And some traditions marked the transition to winter by honoring her in late October. In ancient Greece, we had Thessalmophoria, which was a festival held in October to honor Demeter, Persephone, the goddesses associated with agriculture, fertility, and the cycle of life and death. Thessalmophoria was a women-only festival that celebrated fertility and the fertility of the earth, and it had a counterpart in spring as well. Although it was more common in early October, the themes kind of aligned with the seasonal transition and the cycle of life and death. Also in ancient Greece, we had the rites of Eleusis, or the Eleusinian mysteries, and they were secret religious rites held annually, also in honor of Demeter and Persephone, particularly in September, but also extending into early October. And these rites were part of the broader context of harvest and fertility. They symbolized the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, with participants undergoing rituals that were meant to provide spiritual insight and a connection to the divine. So, while not exclusively in October, they were a vital part of this seasonal religious practice that culminated around this time. But moving into our more modern holidays, we do have Canadian Thanksgiving on October 8th. It is celebrated the second Monday of October. And like the U.S. counterpart, it is a day for giving thanks for the harvest and blessings of the past year. It's just a little bit earlier than the American version because of Canada's earlier harvest season, and we had political reasons for pushing back our Thanksgiving into November. This year, we have Yom Kippur, which runs from October 11th to 12th. The holiday starts at sundown, and that is the Day of Atonement and the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. It typically does fall in October, but it is one that changes. It's a day of fasting, prayer, and repentance, a time for self-reflection, seeking forgiveness, and making amends. And then, of course, at the end of the month, we have Halloween. Halloween is one of the most widely celebrated holidays in October, especially in the States. It has roots in Samhain, which we will get to, which, marked the end of the harvest season, beginning of winter. But Halloween itself is associated, with costumes, trick-or-treating, carving pumpkins, haunted houses, supernatural themes. But a lot of those traditions came from Samhain, but also came from some Celtic and British Isle traditions like mumming, which was performing in costume, or guising, which is just disguising oneself. Those have very ancient roots that are tied to Samhain and the agricultural cycle in general. And those practices involved going door to door in costume, singing songs, or performing plays in exchange for food or drink. And that was a way to honor the dead. They would honor the dead of the house who they went to in exchange for these things. And it was a way to protect oneself from the malevolent spirits that were thought to be out that were before you transition into winter. So those traditions are considered precursors to our modern Halloween customs. And I do have more information on all of those things over Patreon, YouTube, over the years, just talking about those, even on the podcast. So I always find that history fascinating. And then we also have Samhain, which is distinct from Halloween. And Samhain is that ancient Celtic festival that marks the end of the harvest, considered a third harvest festival on the wheel of the year, and the beginning of winter. So traditionally, it's celebrated from the evening of October 31st to the evening of November 1st. And that is one that's considered one of those four major Gaelic seasonal festivals. It is also regarded as the Celtic New Year or the Witches' New Year. Samhain is a time to honor ancestors and loved ones who have passed away. It's believed that during Samhain, the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is at its thinnest, allowing for communication with spirits. Many modern pagan and Wiccan traditions celebrate Samhain as a spiritual holiday, especially as it leads into the November 1st Day of the Dead, All Souls Day. There's a lot of other religions and traditions that celebrate that on that day, which we'll get into when we get to next month's episode of November holidays. I do always have ebooks up on Patreon, so if you want more Sabbath information, I have tons of Samhain content over there and more to come this month. So if you are looking forward to that, then do head over there, and there will be plenty of spells and rituals and recipes and all kinds of things for you to celebrate this holiday. And I also wanted to mention that we are ending the month. There's a lot of things going on the 31st. We also have Diwali. Diwali is known as the Festival of Lights. It is one of the most important Hindu festivals. The date varies every year because it's based on the lunar calendar, but it often falls in late October or early November. It is a 5-day fest. So it starts on October 29th, but Diwali itself is October 31st to November 1st. And Diwali celebrates the victory of light over darkness and good over evil. And it involves lighting oil lamps, decorating homes with rangoli, which are just colorful patterns, exchanging gifts, and enjoying festive meals. So there are a few different things going on, and it has a lot of different energies for the month, but there are some common themes that run through there. So I always find that interesting. Let's dive into this October energy. It is a month often associated with transformation, reflection, and preparation for the coming winter. So the energy of October can be described in several ways, and it really depends on cultural, spiritual, and natural influences. So transformation and transition is a big one. September was great for that energy as well. October has you seeing more of that leaves changing and visual signs of transformation of the outer world than you might have seen in September. So we just have more of that same energy. And again, we have that same harvest energy, but this is really the final harvest before winter. This is like deadline month. If you do not finish out the harvest and the preparations for that, then you are going to be out of luck. So it's really doubling down on that energy of gathering and storing resources, both physically, metaphorically, and preparing for those colder months ahead. There is a lot of introspection and reflection in the month of October, especially because the latter part of the month is ruled by Scorpio. And Scorpio is a sign deeply connected to introspection, mystery, transformation, and that Scorpio energy encourages really diving deep into your inner world and facing hidden fears and embracing change. And of course, we have darkening days since we passed the autumn equinox of day and night being of equal length. We have the days growing shorter and the nights growing longer. So October naturally invites a more reflective, contemplative energy for looking inwards, evaluating the past year, considering what you want to release as you move forward into truly the darker part of the year. There's also so much mystery and magic at this time, with of course Halloween and Samhain. It is closely associated with those and that time when that veil is very thin. So it creates this atmosphere of mystery and magic and heavy connection to ancestors and spirits. That is the time for it. Like September, there is still that energy of balance and letting go because there is that Libra influence in the first part of October, and that sign represents balance, harmony, and justice. So that energy flows throughout that beginning part of the month to encourage seeking equilibrium in your life, whether that's relationships, work, your personal goals. And October definitely has that energy of letting go because nature is beginning to shed what's no longer needed, like the leaves. So October is like that reminder of the importance of letting things go, letting go of old habits or bad patterns or emotions that are no longer serving you. So it's not just about the physical and the outside world in nature, but it's also about the inner work as well, and shedding those things that you do not need, especially when you are heading into the months where resources aren't as prevalent. Let go of the emotions you don't need so you can focus on what does serve you. And lastly, we also have that energy of preparation and grounding. Lots of prep for the winter, lots of focusing on creating stability and security and being very practical in that aspect. So organizing and planning and ensuring everything is in place before the winter. And of course, that comes with the most like physical, obvious examples where you're winterizing your home and you are sealing up windows, you're covering up your air conditioner, you're getting the supplies that you need, like shovel or salt for the ice, like making sure that your car is stocked with blankets and things. All of those things are very physical examples of getting ready for winter, but there are a lot of emotional and witchy practices that you can do to get your own mindset ready for winter. And like I mentioned in September, it's also a great time to switch over your items that you're using in your practice and the way that you are practicing, because you might have different needs during these darker winter months than you did in the summer. Overall, October has like a very powerful mix of energies. You've got transformative, you've got introspection, you've got mysterious, you've got grounding. It is a month of embracing change, reflecting on the journey that you've had so far, and prepping for the next phase of the year. So that's everything that I have to share for the month of October. I am very excited that it's coming up, and I will be having a Vlogtober fest over on YouTube. So if you don't follow me over there already, do head over, because I will have a video every single day, and it is going to be Halloween or witchy or Samhain themed for every single one. And I have lots of plans and things going on over there because it is my favorite month to do this sort of the witchiness and Halloween related activities. So be sure to head over and check that out. That is everything that I have for this episode. I will see you all next week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast, and you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.